Yo, what's going on YouTube? This is Broman Clash right here, bringing you the conclusion of New Jack City, the analysis. Now, how does this whole thing tie up into the imagery, the whole thing, and even the struggle of Eurocentric ideals versus Pan-African or Afrocentric survival? The conclusion is this: justice will not be served in a land of oppression, especially when oppression was filled up on those who built it to benefit themselves. For justice to be served, you must take it by your own hand. Be it peaceful or violent, that is for you to decide. But a true man, matter of fact, a true being who understands who they are and what their purpose are and what are their principles and what they stand for, they will not bow down easily. That's all I gotta say to you. But now for the analysis and the conclusion of this three-part. Now, as we left off, we talked about Scotty Appleton and the positivity of reality that he represents, the Afrocentric ideology, the whole thing of earnest work, and how the way Nino Brown represents the bad side of reality or the negative side, and how the way he represents Eurocentric ideals as opposed to Scotty Appleton's Afrocentric survival. And how the way New Jack City as a whole, to me, or to some of you who really overanalyze it, represents the struggle for the African people to survive, and thus the African struggle, or the Afrocentric survival against Eurocentric ideals. As we move on to the ending of the movie, where Nino Brown said this, he says, "I'm not guilty. You're the ones who are guilty. The lobbyists, the coroners, the people, all those who lobby to say that drugs are supposed to be illegal. Just like they try to say something about the prohibition back in the 1920s or 1930s. You try to say that I'm a crook? No, all of you are criminals." In some vein, he was talking about how the way America is guilty of the same crime, basically giving out drugs, giving out liquor, giving out various poisons to the people, and then have the nerve to arrest those very same people that they gave the substance to. You know, like Malcolm X once said, the white man gives you the liquor bottle and then has the nerve to arrest you for being drunk. Just like, hey, look, that's just a quote, just to relate to this whole thing. And how the way, if you know Gary Webb and the Dark Alliance and what is he talking about, you know that he was talking about how the way the CIA, FBI, and various other people work with drug cartels to bring drugs into the community, into the black community, to thus neutralize any threat or anything positive to come out from the black community. Some of you may say, this is a bit far-fetched, this is a bit sketchy. Oh, really? But then tell me this, how does this tie in with New Jack City? New Jack City, like I said before, has a hidden allegory of Pan-Africanist or Afrocentric survival versus Eurocentric ideals. Then, if you watch Planet Rock, the story of hip-hop and the crack generation, that will solidify the deal. Basically talking about two different movies which came out from two different times, but how they connect together. And how the way two sides ultimately had to clash because of one instigator. And that's the so-called justice system. The so-called justice system that we are supposed to abide by. Don't get me wrong. There's sometimes it works, but majority of the times it doesn't help the people that was meant to help. But if you really think about it and how the way everything comes together, a black man has to die because of a crooked system. Pookie, who was a stick-up kid, cleaned himself up from being a basehead, crackhead, decides to work with Scotty Appleton to work as an undercover agent. Wanted to infiltrate the CMB base, Cash Money Brothers base. Then, what happened to that was the fact that his old habits caught up with him. Sometimes being a recovering drug addict is a tough battle. But at the same time, you are willing to do good, but sometimes even harsh words will bring you back to your old ways. And don't worry, I'm not a drug addict, but I could understand where Pookie's coming from. Especially when people say some harsh things when I think I changed. And sometimes change, it's not silver and gold. It's the heart that you have into it. Then now on to the final scene, where Scotty Appleton talks about how Nino Brown is the crook. And he says, like the Michael Jordan slam dunk, of course he did. That's all he does. He's a dope dealer. He buys and sells dope. Scotty Appleton was looking at the apparent problem, while Nino Brown was describing what was really going on why the life of crime, he didn't choose the life of crime. The life of crime chose him, and he embraced it as a form of survival. So you do feel a bit of sympathy for him. And he goes off to say, they threatened to kill my mother. And she goes off to say, oh yeah, the attorney is called, her name is called Miss Hawkins. And she goes off to say, what are you talking about, Mr. Brown? What they? He says that they. Look at him. Kareem Akbar. Yeah, the educated brother from the bank. He's the real head of the CMB. And I'm telling you, this is bigger than Nino Brown. And if I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna take all y'all down with me. Take a whole lot of y'all down with him. What he was talking about was basically that he was merely just a face or a figurehead. But that was no excuse to push poison onto your own people. Then, like I said before, a black man has to die. But sadly, 3, 4, 5 black people were killed in that film. Some of you may say that's not a lot, but there's a significance with that. Because the other man was killed because he was merely loyal. Keisha was killed because she was in the line of fire, proving herself and her loyalty. G Money was killed because he was betrayed by his own friend, Nino Brown. They go way back playing basketball when they were younger kids. G Money was still doing that, but it was small time. And the father was killed. That makes 4. The 5th one, Nino Brown. When he after all those deaths culminated and came back to him, the very same man that he said to, what are you going to do, sell me another, what are you going to give me another I have a dream speech? With that same shit you're ripping off to me? Told that old man those words. Disrespected the elders. An elder came back and delivered him his punishment. A shot in the gut. And he falls to his own death. Justice is not exactly handled by law. Sometimes it can be handled with brutal or deadly force. But lives were lost in a pursuit of greed, and lives were continuing to be lost because of complacency. Many lives were altered and shaped because of drugs. But mainly, when a people lose their way and try to open up to their oppressor, they will go crazy. As you see, Scotty Appleton did represent Pan-Africanism, and he represented a straightforward agenda. He represented justice, but on what level? Nino Brown represented Eurocentric ideals, but he represented crime, yet he knew the game all along. One was playing within the system, one was actually trying to get out of the system. One actually had people that he could trust. One was by himself, and he gave in to his desires. In the end, people were clashing against each other, not for nothing, but it was an endless cycle of violence that claimed many lives and altered even more. And then the future generations, and including me and others, even you, my viewers, who lived the New Jack City life and understood its consequences. And with that, I say that is the conclusion, my people. And you too, thank you for listening to my words and understanding my wisdom. This is Bro Man.